Hey everyone, welcome to Source, the ReThink Mining Podcast. We're going to explore mining, its innovation, and transformation in the industry that's going to drive our world forward. I'm Carl, I'm your host, and the Executive Director and CEO of ReThink Mining. What we're going to do with this podcast is meet some really interesting people, talk about the industry, talk about innovations, talk about new technology, and explore what's actually possible and what we can do collectively to create the minerals and metals that are necessary to drive our world forward. I hope you join us. So we're really fortunate to have the two of you here today. So welcome and thank you for taking the time to be here today. I know as founders, you're super busy. You don't sleep, right? So that's the nature of a founder.
But for you, Carl, anytime.
You can edit that out. This isn't about me, it's about you. So we're lucky that you're here. So today we've got Sonia Couto, did I pronounce that right? Mm-hmm. Trying to do it right. Who is founder of two companies, one related to mining, one outside of mining. We've got Aaron Lambert, who's a founder of a company doing deep tech hardware for the mining industry. So it's going to be a really cool conversation. And to get things started, what I'd ask you to do is just introduce yourselves, a bit of your background and your company and technology, the problem you're trying to solve, okay? Who wants to go first?
Okay, so my name is Aaron Lambert. I'm the founder and CEO of RIINO, which is the Zero-Emission monorail. So my background in the mining industry, I've been in the contractor side for the beginning of my career through to the past 15 years. A lot of underground development mining, specialized Alimac raised mining, mechanized mining, and also underground construction and surface construction. I've also worked with other innovative technologies in the mining space, and that has really led to the inception of what I'm doing today with this technology.
So it's fair to say that you've been in the industry basically your entire career.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And your system that you're doing, what's the name of the company again? I missed that.
RIINO.
RiINO. And it's an innovative haulage technology to solve what problem?
Material haulage in the mining industry. So it's an alternative to conventional trucking, conveyors, or other means of moving material.
And why is that important? Why would a mining company care?
Every mine is a logistics business. Yeah. So moving material, say for underground, for example, there's many components to make that happen. So rather than utilizing conveyors or trucks, there's other options, and this technology is an option, is an alternative to doing this. So.
Oh, cool. So it's funny. I remember Fred Stanford from Torex once said, mining is nothing but a logistics company. That's all it is. How you move material, because you spend more money moving material and getting it, right?
That's right.
So that's really cool. Thanks, Aaron. Sonia, tell us a little bit about your background and your startups.
Yeah, my name is Sonia Couto. I'm the managing director at a company called Konverge and the founder of Field Eagle. And Konverge is a software development company that worked with Field Eagle to get a software built. We originally started in the housing industry, and then we went into oil and gas and accidentally jumped on mining. And we took the technology that we had built for these other two industries and worked with a very large mining company to build out the software even further. And basically, Field Eagle is a data collection tool that eliminates data being collected on the field having to be done with paper and pen. We digitize the entire process, so it can be for health and safety. Asset management is a big one that it's used for. We had a company that used it to do their, they sold reclaimer machines, and then they also sold maintenance agreements with it using our software, and it was all digitized. So it makes life a lot easier, and it eliminates the process of having to do manual reports. So typically it takes about a week or two or a month to put together a report for an inspection on a reclaimer machine. Our system allows you to do it in like 2 seconds.
Oh, wow, that's cool. And you're a little more mature than Aaron because you've actually got customers that you're selling to. So now, for a bit of clarity, are your customers mining companies or are the suppliers, the OEMs?
Suppliers, OEMs.
Primarily. You said that you worked with a mining company to develop it, right?
Yeah.
But now it's going off the OEMs.
Yes. So what happens is a lot of the mining, and even oil and gas, but mining particularly, everyone needs something that software already has, or it doesn't have, or it needs to be added on. It's really hard to find software that has everything that you want. It either has too much or too little. We work with these companies to add what they want or adjust what we have to their needs. So we do a lot of customization. And when we do that, it enhances our product specifically for those industries. So we're always learning from industry and trying to work with as many as we can to make the product even better for that specific niche.
But you also have another startup outside of mining.
Yes.
A little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm the founder also of Menusano, which is a nutrition analysis software for the food service industry. So typically when you purchase a product, you turn the package around and you see a label on it. Traditionally, the way to do that is to send food to a lab to get analyzed. So we do that with software. And we work with, right now we're providing compliant nutrition labeling for Canada, the US, and the UK. So all a manufacturer or a restaurant who shows calories on their menu, they use our software to put together recipes, ingredients, and the end result is they can print out a compliant nutrition label for their products.
Oh, that's
and that
cool.
business has really blown up for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, based on what you said, you could probably use that Menusano mining camps too, because if they're looking for proper nutrition for miners.
Yeah, we're working with a couple of like military facilities and things like that. So yeah, I could see it going down that route.
Cool, but you have to focus on current customers, right? So the interesting thing about being startups, right? Like there's a huge fail, like startups typically 90% plus failure rate, right? And you go into this, a lot of founders go into this and they know that. Some don't know it. They expect to make it big really quickly. So why are you doing this? What's the motivation to do this, knowing all of this, the probability that it may not work?
Yeah, for myself, when I began with the idea, I did not know what I was getting into. I knew the end goal of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to accomplish, but to actually get there, this journey is nothing like I expected. Right. Everywhere from coming up with the concept to raising capital to working with end users and the industry itself was not what was expected. So every day is a new step, and we have to realign of what we want to do, how we're going to accomplish it, and build those relationships and network with the industry. So for our technology, it's a huge endeavor. It's not a simple, this is a component we want to add to something existing. It's a complete mining system. So it's very large scale. There's multiple years of development, capital intensive, and it takes a lot of feedback from the industry to say, we're building something for you and we want your input. We want to make sure that this technology will work for what you want to do. And also it takes a group effort to be successful.
So the other part of that too, Aaron, is like, coming from the mining industry, you're doing really well, lots of work out there. But like you made the leap to doing something that is like, why are you doing this? Like the motivation, why you get out of the bed in the morning and say, I'm doing this because, what's driving you? I'm curious about that. Yeah.
So I've always wanted to do something like that's my nature. I want to do something different. Yeah. So having my experience in the mining space and the operations, being hands-on, executing the work, developing mines, say 10 years ago, developing underground, we're still using the technology that was used 50 years ago, pneumatic air drills, right? And the people
100 years ago.
Exactly. And the people that I worked with, that I learned from are they're no longer working, they're retired. But I learned the ways that they mined, and it is, I'd say, old school, right? There's better ways to do things, right? And in the mining industry, as a specialty miner, rapid development mining, contract miner, obviously we want to go as fast as we can and get to the ore body, right? The technologies we have now are constraining us to improvement, right? 15 years ago when I entered into the industry, for example, development mining, our cycle times allowed us to mine about twice as fast as we are today. Yeah. Because now we have more safety inputs, we have more ground support, more constraints. And the next step for us is we need to utilize new technologies to change those cycles in the mining process. So we don't have access to anything like that right now. And I've worked with other innovative technologies in the mining space that have allowed us to make changes, but those technologies don't quite fit the mining world, right? So as a miner, how do we use these technologies? Well, we actually need to develop those technologies properly for us to use. So essentially, I've taken what I've done in the industry and also other technologies that have allowed us to make change and came up with a concept of what actually would work. So now that we've progressed, working with the industry and users that take in this concept, and now let's build something that we can actually use. And in the future, once we validate the technology itself, we can make these big changes.
Geez, you're singing from my song sheet. This is great. But you said a couple of things, and just is it fair to say that what RIINO is kind of like a systems integration, because you're not developing a bespoke sort of thing, but rather taking pieces that already exist, putting it together?
That's right.
And that kind of makes it vendor agnostic as well, which is mining industry loves vendor agnostic stuff, right? So are those two statements true?
Yes, absolutely. So from a risk management perspective, developing a technology, a concept is the very beginning of a TRL scale from level 1. Over the past few years, we've brought it from a TRL level 0 to 1 from concept through to TRL level 4, which we are at now to begin the engineering. For us to, sorry, do you want to just repeat?
Systems integration and vendor agnostic.
Yes. So as part of our risk management strategy is we want a product that is user-friendly, but also something that we can support on large scale. So to reduce the technology development risk, we want to integrate existing technologies, existing components, existing equipment into our design to lower that risk, so that as we move our technology through the TRL, we're going to be more successful having the components and equipment market ready and available to us.
Cool. It's funny. It kind of reminds me of old school OOPS programming, right? Object oriented, where you're taking existing stuff and putting it together. So just as a sidebar, and you were worried about this, Aaron? We're going to be here for 4 hours now. No, you're doing great. Thank you. So Sonia, same question as Aaron, like founder of 2 startups. What's the driver? You get out of bed every morning and say, I'm doing this, like knowing the failure rate, knowing how hard it is, all this sort of, what's the driver? What's the motivation for you?
Well, I came to Canada as an immigrant, and I don't think I had all the opportunities that, kids that were born here had. And so that's sort of my motivation. My parents brought us here to give us a better opportunity. So I get up in the morning and I think about that. But more importantly, I love a challenge. I can't do the same thing over and over again like a robot. I need to do something new. I love learning. So I love solving problems. I find that, in today's age, when I was 10, I thought today we'd be driving, self-driving cars and flying cars. We have self-driving cars, but not flying cars yet. So I think we live in an age where technology for good can really make a difference. And I love the challenge of going into a very traditional industry like mining, who has basically the mentality of, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? And coming in and saying, yeah, you're doing that and it works, but it's so labor intensive. Let's fix it with some technology. Let's find a way to innovate. Let's be disruptive. That's really what I love. And that's what wakes me up in the morning. Not, social media technology and that stuff, but like disruptive technology that's really going to have an impact on people's lives, make people happier, make the earth better, just in general, everything. That's really what I love to do. So
it's really funny. There's a saying I have. People ask me when I moved into mining, say, are you out of your mind? Why are you doing this? And what you two said is actually very similar. Is you have the opportunity in your hand to change and to transform an industry. That's basically what we said. Is that about right? So following on from that, like doing this is really hard. What motivates you? But what's your support system? And is there at various levels of support? Like there's individuals you go to. There's a person I knew that runs a startup. He has a breakfast meeting with 5 mentors once a month, right? Mm-hmm. Like to keep this going, because it's hard to do it yourself. Like even running a company of a mature company is hard to do it yourself. So I'm kind of curious the sort of support systems you have to do this, to keep it going.
For myself, working with individuals that I've worked with in the past on certain projects. Also, early stage, I engaged with the industry itself, talking to different mine sites, mine managers, superintendents, getting their feedback on the technology. So that brought me along step by step. And then further on, I started engaging with other innovators, end users as well, And what really is this technology? How do we align it? You had mentioned Fred Stanford, so he also developed the Muckahai system. So for myself, sitting with him and getting to know him and speaking, about his path, his vision, where he's leading his technology, gives me a basis for me to understand these are the opportunities. These are the things that I see can be changed. And, that helps develop my vision as well. And also helps me place some steps in front of me of the path forward for myself as well. Everything that I'm doing right now, there is a plan, but it's definitely unexpected. Walking into this, I was very oblivious. I thought this is going to be very easy. I got an idea. We can change mining. Definitely not like that.
Oh, yeah.
Entering 4 years into this now, and we're just getting the ball rolling. It's a very large ball, I can say. But now that it's rolling, it's getting legs, and now we need more support, more interactions, and definitely learning as we go to do this.
It's funny, we talked about Fred Stanford. I think, Sonia, you actually presented at a conference several years ago. Fred was the keynote.
Yes.
Right. So you had an opportunity to talk about what you're doing, and he was talking about what he was doing with the Muckahai project.
Yeah.
So I totally forgot about that. It's kind of really cool intersections. Sonia, 2 companies, support systems, and the other thing too related is, are your support systems changing as you go forward? Because when you step into it, there's probably 1 or 2 people, and then as you go further, you probably need more. Right?
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
I think when I first started, I wanted to be friends with my team, and I wanted them to be my support system. That was the wrong way to go about it. And then I got to a stage where I learned that I couldn't do that. And then it was very lonely for a while. Yep. And I was trying to solve every problem and trying to figure everything out on my own. And it just really stressed me out and put me in a really bad place. And then I learned from a mentor of mine that I needed to be in places, and I needed to make new friendships and relationships with people that were wearing the same shoes as I was. Yep. So I started going out and networking and going to tech events and mining events, all kinds of things. And I started sort of hanging out with people more like me. And it didn't have to be like a round table. It was just being around and having a casual conversation, but being around those people taught me a lot. And then I did join a CEO roundtable that helped me quite a bit. I did that prior to COVID for a couple of years, but I still continue the networking. And I have a couple of mentors in my life now that I can go to when I'm struggling. I'll get together with once a month. I mean, they're busy. They're giving me their time, so I'm appreciative of that. But for me, it's mostly like I love to learn. So I'm sitting with someone, we're having a conversation, but I'm absorbing all the information that I'm getting, and I'm also learning how they behave and some of the challenges that they've gone through. And I love failing sometimes because those are my biggest lessons, and I learn, and I always want to pick their brain about where they failed and how they picked up from that and what they did to turn it around. So it's just about being around other people who have been there and done it so that I can learn from them.
Something you just said is really important, is failures, right? There's a number of people say you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your failures, because somebody who's really successful and has never failed, they're going to crash and burn really badly. Yeah. Whereas your failures, what did you fail at, learn from that and pivot, or whatever terminology you want to use. So can we explore that a little bit in terms of failures? So you mentioned it, Sonia, you keep going on the failure piece. Give it examples.
Absolutely.
I've had a couple of failures.
No, just examples of that, because again, some of the people out there, there's mining companies are going to listen to this, or they want to know things where you fall down. And there's other people, other entrepreneurs that are in your shoes that are going to want to hear this. So it's really, it's important, as Aaron said, it's important to understand what you're getting into, and you will fail.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
will, right? I've done that many times. So,
but it's not always a bad thing.
That's what I'm saying. It's a good thing.
No, it is a good thing.
It.
It is a good thing. For example, for myself, entering into the very first stages of engaging with the mining companies with this idea of an end goal, right? So I entered, talking to some of the mining companies that, we can use this technology, we can redesign a mine. They said, that's a great idea, but that's never going to happen. I said, oh, wow. So, right. That's a huge endeavor. There's no technology. It doesn't work. Like, it's an idea, right?
Right there.
Right then and there. So they said, well, at least can you develop an animation, right? Rather than a picture. I said, well, okay, that's a good step. So then I went back and developed some 3D models and created an animation so I can really explain the technology a little bit further, and good feedback, good buy-in. But again, where's the technology? We need to see it before we can adopt it. So next stage is, well, how do I bring this to the industry to be accepted? And that's taking it a step back is, what's the very first step that I can do with this technology? Where is the in to using this, to validate it, to demonstrate it? And then following that, then we can use it for other applications. So I took that back, and this is over months now, right? Of setting up meetings and engaging with different groups and getting feedback.
I remember hearing some of that.
Right? Yeah. I mean, this goes back almost 2 years when we first started talking on the steps that I should take. And so I went back to the industry with, the primary focus, safety wise, saving operating costs, decarbonization. We can move material with this. Very simply, that's the first process. And, further from that, then we can do more with the technology. So that was the piece that I learned, as you have to navigate through these conversations. You have to take back what you think you're going to do and change it. So if I knew what I knew now, and up to this point anyways, I got lots less left to learn over the next few years. But to this stage, if I started off with what I know now, that process would have happened a lot faster than it has taken. But it's because of everything I've done. I've been learning, and those essentially are failures as well.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Sonia, he let you off the hook. So now it's your turn.
Everybody says they love technology, but that's not always a fact, right? Everyone's like, oh, we need technology to solve this problem. And then you present the technology and it's like, ooh, I'm scared. Yeah. And I've encountered that a couple of times in my career, and with Field Eagle many times, where it's like, we're doing this manually. We need technology. Oh, you have a product that solves this problem. Great. Ooh, but it doesn't do it this way. And we really needed to do this. So I got to a point with Field Eagle where I was like, forget it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to scrap it, put it aside, just because it was, techies, we love technology. And sometimes we tend to overcomplicate things as well. Mm-hmm. So a hard lesson that I got as soon as we got it, prior to mining in the other industries, the product was doing well. When we got to mining, that's where we were like, oh, we need to take a step back. So I had to make the decision as a founder to say, do we continue on this path, or do I take a step back and restart? We had some industries that were using it. We kept it there. But when it came to mining, we're like, we need to rebuild this to cater to this industry. And one of the challenges we had was the tablet application was not user-friendly for the people on site. So you're talking about older people who are not super tech savvy, who are used to, and I'm not blaming them, they're used to doing something with paper and pen, when you take a paper and you're like checking things off, right? So when we built it, we didn't build it that way. We built it as like this super innovative thing, and everybody hated it. Nobody wanted it. And we're like, oh, man, we really missed the mark on that one. So then we had to step in and work with the field operators to understand their thinking, to understand their process out in the field, and understand, okay, how can we make this easy and replicate that paper and pen experience? Where it's not, instead of with paper, you tick one thing off. Now with this, you got to go 1, 2, 3. How can we eliminate the 2 and the 3? So we had to really go in and learn from the users in order to adapt the technology to that, in order for them to, accept it. So the failure ended up being a learning experience, and we were able to pivot from that. But if we had kept going and not realized that it was a failure and stepped back, we would probably be nowhere if we kept pushing the way we wanted to do it. And I think it's really important to understand your clientele, your industry, how they work, how they operate, so that technology can adapt to them and not them necessarily adapting to technology. I think that's a good foot in the door for traditional industries that are not used to adapting all this new technology quickly.
Well, you boasted something that reminds me of the saying in mining, the race to be second, right? And
That's
one senior person in a mining company actually said, for our company, I won't say who they are, it's actually more like the race to be fourth. We're not going to touch it unless it's been done. That being said, though, because of as I said earlier, because of the challenges, they're interested in taking a bit more risk, which is nice. But you boasted something interesting about working. This is what I want to do, and working with partners, your customers, right? And there's a couple of anecdotes I have from other startups that we've run into that I want to lead into this, how you work with the industry and your vision as a startup, right? As a founder of a startup, you get a vision that says, this is where we want to go, right? I want to do this, but your customers are, and as you just said, Sonia, it's not quite going to work. And you kind of referred to it too, Aaron. The customer is saying, this is what we want. You still got that vision. And in other spaces, I've heard people say, well, you're the founder, it's up to you, stick to your vision. But if you have no revenue, no customers, you have to balance that sort of thing. There was one company I remember years ago. I'll never forget this. It was really cool. It was an internet appliance, like Bell and Rogers, the boxes you buy. It could have been this company. Like it was amazing. And what the CTO said in a meeting, this is 15 years ago, 20 years ago, said, we knock on doors, right? We knock on doors and we knock on 100 doors and we get one sale. They just don't get it, right? If your customers don't get it, is it their problem or yours? It's yours, right?
That's right.
And another startup was, I was talking to somebody on the board who basically related to me that this is where they wanted to go. This is what the customers were saying, and they refused to pivot. And the conversation was, what's your plan to lay everybody off? You're going to close your doors in 6 months. So how do you, and I've got a third too, because there is a balance here.
Yeah.
And this is one of the technologies we had, this CAM technology for grinding disruptive. Everybody said, you can't do it. It's impossible. Go away. Just like you said, Aaron, you can't do that. Go away. Right. And it's being commercialized now. So there's a tipping point or a point where you try and work with your customers to make potential customers the right people. You got to get the right people and the right explanation. But also, do you continue down just this path, or both? How do you do that? How do you work with your potential customers? And where do you make that transition point about, I'm not going to get there, or you just say, screw you and pivot? I'm kind of curious how you balance customer needs, because this relates to revenue too.
Absolutely. Right? There's a few pieces to that, because not only are we exactly, for example, we're not only building our system to move material, which we're working with our group partners right now. I mean, the opportunity for this technology in that space, there's many use cases for it. So working with our group partners right now, not only do we want to target building the technology for them, but we want to, at this point in time, since we're doing it from the ground up, we want to incorporate what those other applications will be. So we want to consider now, when we begin, what else can we do with it? We want to get other feedback from outside the industry, within the industry, in different spaces, so that consideration, that could be taken into consideration now, and we can build it in. So we don't have a technology that is built, and then we got to go back to square one and make a few changes, which could significantly change the design and essentially start from ground zero again, redesigning it, re-engineering it, and redeveloping it. And in addition to that, like you mentioned about working with the industry partners to get a product that works for them, what I've realized working with our group partners, is they've been involved in developing other large-scale technologies in this space. It's not their first time doing it, and they've spent years and millions of dollars doing it. So being able to co-develop our technology with the end users and getting their feedback, not only on the technology, but on the development of the technology. So for example, one of our members came back in one of the workshops and said, well, hang on, we've built a different type of system for a different application in open pits, and we've spent a lot of time doing it, millions of dollars. And at the end of it, we realized that we don't even need those extra things that we put onto it. So they said, let's develop this for a specific purpose, take out all the bells and whistles, let's get the technology working, and then from there we can make these add-ons. We'll get to the development time sooner, we'll get the operating equipment sooner, and it's going to cost us a lot less, and we'll have what we actually need.
You said a couple of things that were important there. The first thing that ran into my head, what you just said, is MVP. Let's build a minimum viable product first and then add, versus make it perfect and take 2 years and has all the bells and whistles in it, which is kind of what you just said, right? Let's get it to work and get it in front of your customers. There's a couple of other things as well that you'd mentioned, but I'll let Sonia go on to that.
Yeah. So in product development, there's always, what we call a product roadmap.
Yeah.
that is continuous. We're always building, improving, and trying to make the product better. So I actually started something called the customer board.
Oh, cool.
And so every client that signs up to use our product gets to be part of our customer board. And what that is it gives them the opportunity to contribute to our product roadmap. So traditionally, when we were building out the product roadmap for features that we're going to build out, it was based on cool tech, what we wanted to make our technology cool.
This is
and
what Sonia
wants. This feature is going to be so cool. Let's build AI. Yeah. So I've turned it around, and now I've put that on the hands of our customers, existing customers. And they get to tell us, you know what, I love your software, but if it could do this, it would really help out our business. It would help out the industry. So we have a program where I meet with all of our clients, and they tell me what they need our software to do further to what it's already doing. And then we build our roadmap based on the most common asked things from our clients. And then the things not so common, we put them towards the end of the product roadmap. And it's a win-win for us and our customers, because we're putting features that they want and need into our product roadmap. We're going to develop it, and we're going to work with these companies to be our beta testers and get the requirements from them. And we're going to now add this to our product and make it better with industry validation, but our customers are going to get these features for free.
Cool.
Right? Because we're going to build out the product roadmap regardless, right? We have to keep innovating. We have to keep making the products better. But now we're telling our customers, hey, we're not just building technology so you can buy it and we can make money. No, we want you to be involved in the process. We want you to help us make the product even better for you. And customers really buy into that, because it's like, you're not just a company that's selling us something, you're engaging with us. You want our feedback. You want to hear what we have to say. What?
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, what? You're just going to build that? Yeah. Like, a lot of people are asking for this. Work with us. Let's build it out for you specifically. And then you're going to beta, and then we're going to launch it, and everyone is going to get access to it. And that's really worked out well for us.
Can I just ask her a question? Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on that, getting the feedback from your clients and customers, what is that platform that you use to do that? Is it where they come in and submit forms, or is it they directly speak to someone? What's your process, and how do you follow through on that?
I personally reach out to every single client and introduce them to the board. And then I put together once a month a meeting. Sometimes I'll have 5 people on from different industries. Sometimes it'll be a one-on-one. And also with my sales team, I have to be in a sales meeting at least once or twice a week, where I will do the demo of the product, because I want to hear what clients are saying.
So
and
there
asking
is
for.
no easy way around it. You take that feedback and you build that into your platform.
Now, I could have my team do it, but then it takes away from adding the value to our clients that there's somebody at the head that cares, right?
That's
so
right.
Me being there, I sometimes I step into meetings and I'm like, yeah, my name is Sonia, I'm the founder of the product. They're like, why are you in this meeting? This is like a sales meeting. And I always have to tell them, because I want to hear your feedback, right? And that adds a lot of value. And the other thing we do is, I do these meetings once a month. In our platform, we have a help section where clients can go in and tell us the feedback, just submit it to us. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out, and in that newsletter, there's a section for the customer board, and we actually put the roadmap. So we put on the roadmap the features that we have built, are complete and launched, the ones that we are working on now, and the ones that we have in the pipeline that are coming up, to keep them informed on what we're doing in case they're not in those meetings or they don't have time.
So you just said, I think is really important, related to the leadership question, is high touch versus an automated form where people don't feel like they're actually, you care. Right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Because I think, Aaron, your question was leading to, is it an electronic thing where you submit a form, or is it high touch and call them once a month?
So what kind of led me into that question is, right now, as we scale up hiring resources, time management, what's everybody's responsibilities, and everything that needs to be done from my level down through the engineers or administration, how are we going to manage all these tasks? What's the time requirements to do that? How many resources do we need? How much funding do we need? this is what we have available. This is what we can and cannot do. So what's most important? What's the priorities? So that's really where I'm at right now, is building out those processes and obviously time management as well, right?
And as a CEO of a company too, it's like you're the figurehead, right? And as the company grows, that changes. So again, this leads into the idea about leadership, right? Because there are some founders I've seen that they're the techies, they're the CEO, they know nothing about business, know nothing about finance. We were talking about a company just the other day, and they're looking at potentially signing a deal, and the opportunity they have is in the billions. They don't even know it, but they can't be the CEO. So there's changing roles as you develop this out, and you're probably at different stages. So in terms of leadership styles, like as you progress, how's that? What you just said, Aaron, is you start out, you're doing everything, but then you build out your team, and there's things you need to be involved in, things you don't need to be involved in, and you have to let some things go. So I'm curious about your leadership styles and that changing face of that.
Yeah. So for myself, I've taken what I've known and how I've done things and the tools that I have to where I am now. But I can honestly say I'm consistently learning. Every day I'm learning something new. Definitely making changes on my approach on working with individuals. My background is working in the mining space and operations. I did that for quite a few years. Take a group of guys, let's go drill, blast, break, rock, right? So there's a leadership style that you need to manage those types of operations and do those things. But in this role, it's very different. It's very diverse, the things that I need to do. Working with different groups, working with engineers is different than working with the operations. And that's different than working with investors or clients. So it's definitely a learning curve, and it's building yourself internally as well to manage those interactions and build those relationships. So for myself, it's a big learning step, big learning process, and it's continuously learning and being open to taking that feedback from individuals as well. Even the criticism or saying maybe you should approach it like this. No, I'm accepting to that. Mentorship, say from yourself, Carl, when we spoke 2 years ago. I brought the project to you, and you said you got to come back once you get more involvement. You need some more people working with you that believe in the technology, bring on some advisors. So what I did, I turned around and I said, absolutely. So I went out and brought on some people that I worked with in the past and built an advisory team. People from each space, whether it's in battery electric operations, engineering, or the mining space itself. So I started building a team, but it's definitely building yourself up as well.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's a real conversation.
That's
hey,
right.
Dude, I got this cool stuff. You have a few minutes. It's really neat, but
That's right.
We get conversations like that with startups now 2 to 3 times a week. Like it's amazing, because you're listening to people and the potential is huge. But then you tweak into that. What skills do they have? What leadership do they have? What are they missing? Do they understand this? Or is it just, again, back to the leadership question, is it somebody just trying to sell stuff and whatever? So again, Sonia, leadership stuff, what you've learned and changes, your style.
In the beginning, I was a control freak. Yep. I used to believe that if I wanted something done right, I had to do it myself, and I trusted nobody. I had to do it. And that caused me to have a lot of stress and be constantly reactive. And then I got really sick, and I actually got diagnosed with breast cancer, and my life sort of changed, but I'm still in this leadership role, and I had to step back and change the way I was leading, and I had to trust my team. I had to learn how to delegate, and that was actually a really good lesson for me, and I would never go back and change it, because going through that process of having to heal my body and go through treatments and things like that, it taught me a really valuable lesson in leadership. And so now I'm more about having the right team in place, having the right people doing the right things, delegating, and then managing them and being a mentor to them, and pushing them instead of pushing myself. And they know who they're working with. They know I'm a control freak. So they push themselves, because they know that if they're not at the level where I want them to be, I'm going to push them to get there. And I'm also constantly trying to mentor them by pushing them and getting them in their own careers to the next level. Right. So I think it's about really being organized. I'm an organized freak. I wake up, first thing I do, I look at my calendar, like everything is in my calendar. Everything is digital. If I go on vacation, I take my computer with me for peace of mind. It's just how I operate. If not, that totally stresses me out. But I have to be very organized so that I can have a good work-life balance.
Well, it's funny. Aaron was nodding with that.
I want to say something there. But that's where I am at right now with myself. Building this up, I've done everything on my own. Yeah. Every conversation, every task that's been done, I've done it. Now that I've brought on, a partner that's working with me that believes in the technology, he's an expert in what he does. But now for me to give my vision to him, since still it is a vision as we work forward where we want to be, it's allowing him to do what he needs to do as well as part of the project. Yeah. So my experiences in mining industry, not every project is successful. Oh. Very, very few projects.
Every industry.
Yeah.
So from what I know in the mining industry, very few are successful. I mean, you have fun at the end of the day, the project's on time and on budget and safe. There's very few that accomplish that without a lot of headaches. For example, I'd say 1 out of 10 projects that I've worked on over in the past 15 years have been successful. And the only reason for that is because it's been a good team. Yeah. Everybody comes in the morning. Everybody knows exactly what to do. We know how each one of us works. We interact together. And at the end of the day, we have fun and we're very successful. So for ourselves and for myself as a leadership role in this company is to bring on individuals that not only I'm comfortable with, but what the team is comfortable with. Yeah. So we want to develop a growing team that we can work together day in and day out and enjoy what we're doing. So I know just from my experience, if we do that, if we build a team like that, I can rely on them to do what they need to do. And at the end of the day, just from that experience, we will be successful.
What you said is really important about the team piece, because there's hiring the right person or right people, right, is absolutely, you got to get the right people. I remember talking to a health startup years ago, and she said her worst mistake was hiring the wrong person that cost $500,000, right? Because it got the wrong person. They hired that, so having the team. But the other side of that team piece too is what you've just talked about is, or the question I have, I should say, is. Again, personally, I have this approach that you hire people that are smarter than yourself. Oh yeah, right. Like you can't. You start out doing everything, but you're not a software coder. I don't think you're an electrical engineer. But
by no means am I.
But you have to be comfortable with these people who are. You surround yourself with really smart people, and you have to trust them, and they have to trust you because you're making the strategic decisions. Is that a fair statement for the two of you?
So you are not the first one that has told me that. I've been told by multiple people, surround yourself with smart people.
Absolutely.
Because for myself, I know what I know. I don't know everything about in our company. I don't know everything about engineering. I don't know everything about investment. I don't know everything about an executive corporate level. These are all things that I'm learning, from stakeholders and the board. This is what I am learning. So having people involved with me, whether it's an advisor or a mentor or someone that has experience that I can reach out to, they provide me that information and they help allow me to make the decisions that I need to make based on of their feedback. So having individuals experienced in their area of expertise really helps me do what I need to do and moves the company forward the way that it should.
I always try to hire people that are good for the job, but are also really strategic thinkers and can wear multiple hats. Yeah. So if they have different experiences on a resume, to me, that's a bonus because I know not only am I hiring them to do this particular job, but they're also going to come in and they're going to look at other areas and improve on that. I'll give you a really simple example. Like one of the products we have now, we're obviously scaling. And one of the things we were trying to do was like search engine optimization, SEO. We were trying to do it ourselves, right? Yeah. And like our marketing team, nobody really had any experience in it. So I'm like, why don't we just hire a company to do that, who actually knows how to do it instead of trying to do this ourselves? So we did that. And like 100% of that work is now done by a different company who actually knows what they're doing, who has the resources to do it. And we're like, why were we pulling our hair trying to get this SEO stuff done when we really don't have to do it? Because there's people that are out there that are experts in this. So that's also the other thing, right? Like if you need something done and you've never done it before and you're just not good at it, find someone who is.
But what you said, sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
No, I was just going to build on to that, just for ourselves, not only for the company, growing the company, but also for developing the technology.
Yeah.
So we're heavily involved in the mining industry, working with the end users. But the technology itself has many different components that aren't really in the mining space. So for example, the drives that we built into are building into our system, they're heavily used in other industries, in manufacturing and outside of mining. So as we engage with other partners and other members, they're giving feedback from their experiences in other industries. So for example, on the engineering side, we're working with engineering firms not in the mining space, but outside of the mining space that are bringing amazing ideas and solutions that we can use in our technology. Even though they don't have a clue about mining, we can integrate what they want, what they have in their experiences into what we're doing, and it's made a lot of improvements to our concept to even where we are now.
Yeah, two things, and I want to jump into what you just said about outside of mining, because a lot of I want to move down into working with mining and outside of mining, that sort of thing. Anyway, but into what you said, Sonia, about outsourcing and building the team, there's a balance, because a lot of people compared ReThink Mining a couple of years ago is like, we're operating like a startup. We had like 2 employees. That's it. But we outsourced everything. Like Trevor's outsourced. Right.
That's
so
right.
we're actually building and growing the team. So there's a time to outsource when you're not experts, but then there's a time to actually switch and bring the team on. And there's pros and cons. I'm kind of curious your thoughts on the outsourcing versus when you switch and grow. And you may not be there yet. I don't know.
Yeah, outsourcing is hard.
Yeah.
We have a team in a different country, Eastern Europe, that does a lot of our development. And when we started out with them, it was really good. But I do find that I have to go out there as often as I can. And it's a team that needs to be really well managed. Offshoring to a different country is a whole different animal. Yep. There is a language barrier. There are culture barriers and all. So we've been doing it for over 10 years, outsourcing with a partner. And I do find that there has to be processes in place. Yep. And you have to really manage that company or the partner you're working with. So I think we've done it enough now that we're at a really good place where we know exactly how they work and how we need to manage them. But there are a lot of challenges there. And also, they're not part of your company, right? Whether you're offshore, like if you're outsourcing or whatever here or any other country, they're not your company. They're not passionate. They're just your vendor.
Right.
There's
they have their own business.
Yeah. But I think in the start, when you have little capital and you need to get your product out, it is an effective way of getting your product out to market and then getting to a point where you're generating some sort of revenue and then you can start building out your team. We're now at a point where we still have an offshore team, but we have our own in-house developers as well. Yeah. So the offshore team is an extended arm to get all of the little things that we need done, but everything is managed in-house. So we are now at the point where we can have 2 parts to our team, but it does come with a lot of challenges. Yeah. And I always tell people, like, if you need, especially software development, everyone thinks, oh, I'm going to offshore to this country and I'm going to get it done for like $10 an hour. More often than I like to care for, people come to us and they're like, we need software built. Can you reuse source code? We're like, okay. Oh, I had this source code built in this country and I paid for it and it's useless. And we're like, let's take a look. We're like, we can't reuse this. It's complete. And it's because there isn't a process. There's no documentation. Yep. There's no overview, source code review, QA properly done, test cases, all that stuff that goes into building a product. A lot of it gets skipped. And if you're trying to do it yourself and you're not doing it through a company that can manage an offshore team, you usually will get into trouble.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember stories about in microelectronics, same thing, right? Because a lot of the manufacturing is offshore. There's a couple of famous companies, one in Canada, nosedive because of no processes, nothing in place. You're not hand holding the company, especially offshore, right?
Yeah. What you're doing sounds very similar to where we are right now, because, like you mentioned, capital, right? Or if we don't have the capital to hire a big team, well, what do? Well, we have to execute these portions of work. So let's outsource what we can, and we'll figure it out as we move forward with the work we have to do and the capital we have. But working with outsourced in like groups is, they're focused on their business. They do what you want, but it's not exactly what you want or what you need. So for us too, we've gone through those hurdles through engineering feasibility studies, preliminary testing, and working with other groups. And we've realized that, yes, our path forward is we need to build a core group internally to lead it. But also we need those subject matter experts outside that we're going to be working with. But we do need to build a team internally. It's definitely for what we do. I mean, it's probably specific to each business, but for us, we do need to build that group for what we're doing, developing a technology. What we realized is we do a lot of whiteboarding. Yeah. So trying to work with engineers over Teams, it's a conversation. They go away, they come back, and they give us something that's not quite right. So we've spent a week doing it. Then they got to go back and make those changes from review. And we find we spend more time managing the project than we are actually working on it. And that extends the schedule. Costs are higher because obviously we're paying, a premium to work with these people. So for us, we've realized we got to build a core team that we can go into the office every day, spitball all these conversations and ideas, and actually progress at a rapid rate.
So in that was kind of the conversation we had earlier this week, is it's the balance between we're actually not going to be able to get the right outsource. So we're going to have to build our own team. So actually there's a cost savings plus also an acceleration of the product development. So it's not always related to what money you have in your pocket. It's about how you can get the product out the door faster.
But it's definitely, with that said, it's definitely not easier coming in-house because now there's a lot more involvement bringing employees on and financially stable to continue them to exactly the cost.
But you know what? It's going to cost you more over time because once you get to a point where you have 200 clients. One of our products, we have over 200 clients. And the minute we hit that 200 mark, it was like clients are calling in and how do you do this? How do you do that? I can't do this. And your offshore team cannot manage all of these inquiries that are coming in. You need a team in-house that's like, okay, let's go fix that. Let's go fix that. I can help this client. The more clients you bring in, the more problems you're going to have. And you're going to need that core team in-house to help solve problems quickly. An offshore team is just impossible to do that. And you know what? I find that after COVID, prices offshore are not cheaper. No. Because everyone's doing remote now. So now because remote is like the thing, everybody's prices went up. And I'm actually hiring in-house now because it's actually cheaper for us at this point.
Yeah. And then what you said, Sonia, I think, and this is what Aaron was talking about, it's actually cheaper in the long run. It's harder because the capital dip, right? But it's cheaper in the long run because you get better product faster. And you get out the door. It's funny, both said a couple of things about throughout this conversation that I wanted to touch on as well, because you work with mining, but outside of mining, and you talked about vertical markets. Like you said it, Aaron, vertical markets, that's big, because I know some of the stuff you're doing, looking at mining, says it's a small industry comparably. So looking at verticals, Sonia, this is what you're doing already with some of your products. The other thing is that the mining industry tends to, is my perspective anyway, this is a personal thing, not a ReThink Mining thing, put that caveat in there, is that the mining industry thinks they're special, right? We're different than anybody else. There's no similarities. There's no similarities, but you both alluded to the fact that they're actually over, you stated, no, it's the same here, it's the same there, it's the same there. So that overlap in this idea, Aaron, you hit the nail on the head, like the term co-development, right? Because like that's what we do. We borrowed that from the software industry. We introduced it to the mining industry because you got to learn from it. And you said bringing people from outside the industry are just amazing. So I'm kind of curious about the outside of the industry, inside of the mining industry. I'm not phrasing that very well. I'm leaving it totally open.
Yeah, I mean, for ourselves, what I've found is in the mining industry, like you mentioned, it's very hard to get buy-in to new technologies. We're doing everything that we've been doing for many years. And this ReThink Mining platform is the basis and for us, allowing us to come to the industry and get that buy-in from different groups to collaborate and co-develop not only the product, but the business. We work with them on the initiatives of the business. How will we support, commercialize this product once we've developed the pilot? But it's definitely not something that we can do alone. And it's definitely not something that we can do with one group, especially in the mining space. We need that buy-in from the industry. And this platform has allowed us to do that. If it wasn't for the ReThink Mining program, I don't know what other avenue I would have gone down. But I can absolutely say that this has set us up to develop what we're doing.
This wasn't meant as a plug for us, but thank you. It wasn't going down
I'm
that
being
way.
completely honest. I was not prepared for that, right?
I was looking at how the industries are similar and looking at selling outside and inside the industry.
Yeah. But yeah, to add to that, outside of the industry, now that we are moving forward and making progress, I'm getting a lot of people reaching out outside of the industry as well for other applications for the technology. So for example, we're also accounting for developing the technology to move people. Yeah. So we want to build this to comply to regulatory standards. And so we're working with groups outside of mining to do that because we know the application, once we build this, it can be used in other spaces.
Yeah, cool. But there's a balance back to listening to the customers, right? It depends on who's paying the bills. It's about, here's a vertical, we can go this way, but this is what the customers that are paying the bills now want. It comes down to that balancing act again, right?
Exactly. So part of that in our plan to develop the technology, and this is also coming from my mentors and advisors, is we have those opportunities with this technology in the future, but right now we need to laser focus on what we're developing this for. But at the same time, we'll think about that in the background. We'll do the networking outreach and incorporate that, but we're not going to do anything with it quite yet because we want to accomplish what we set out to do first.
And it's letting your current customers know that this is an opportunity in the future. But as you were talking about signing a roadmap, this is part of your roadmap. So you're already kind of doing that. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think tech has opened up a lot of different ways of doing things and thinking to a lot of different industries, particularly traditional industries. Just the thought of having an incubator where you have like multiple startups come in and give them the platform to pitch to investors and learn and teach founders. Like that's amazing, right? Yeah. Tech sort of started that. I think that it's going into, I've seen it now in mining where there's incubators set up for underground mining and mapping and all of these things and coming up with new technologies. A few years ago, I went to one of your events where you had students pitching. It was at Deloitte, I think. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and you had like a couple students pitching their ideas and there was a winner. Like that came from tech, the whole pitching idea. Yeah. I think that, mining loves buzzwords when it comes to tech. I'm being really honest.
It is.
I've been at some tech events, some mining events where like everybody loves the word technology and AI, but at the end of the day, they're really I don't think it's anything wrong. They're reporting to their investors and the bottom line. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what's the cost of bringing in new technology? How is it going to disrupt their bottom line? Is it going to bring their revenue down while they're implementing this new technology? Those are all things that they have to take into account. And if a company has been steady for a while and all of a sudden they're going to take a dip because they're implementing this new technology and it's going to take time to, adapt it, they're going to be more hesitant to it. So I think any new technology coming in has to keep that in mind, right? Yeah. How disruptive is this? But how easy is it for them to adapt so that they can go back to that bottom line?
And is it going to address the problem that we have,
Yeah.
or address a problem we don't know we have? Or there's a saying I have, is turning the need. We know you need it. You talked about this at the start, Aaron. It's turning that need into a want. Right. And, like the cycle
That's
time
right.
to get buy-in is, one of our projects we talked about in 2014. Yes, we want this. Yes, we want this. Took 7 years to launch the first project. It was like crazy. 7 years to turn the need into a want.
Yeah. But also, I find that, and it's not just mining, but we're talking about mining. I find that like if a particular group or company in mining wants something, they'll go out and build it, and they'll hire a company to build it. And then this company down here has done the exact same thing. They've hired a team to build it, and you have like 3 or 4 or 5 companies who have outsourced or brought in a team to build the exact same technology to fix the exact same problem, but they're not talking to each other and saying, hey, you need to fix this problem, I need to fix this problem. Why don't we fix the problem together and share the costs?
Yeah.
So we'll pump up ReThink Mining a little bit more here, okay?
Right, because that happens, right?
No, so you're 100% right.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head.
I know. Thank you.
So that's where we are with our technology, because it's very capital intensive, and not only is it capital intensive, but for the adopters of the technology, it's a huge risk.
Yeah.
So, for example, for our rail system as a haulage solution, they actually have to change their processes in their mining operation. So it's not easily done. They can't just say, our operating mine right now, we're just going to shut down our trucks or conveyors and we're going to buy your system. That affects the entire mine itself, the bottom line, the revenue, capital expenditures, and that's a huge decision that needs to be made with a lot of risk taking. So for us, and especially with this ReThink Mining platform, is with our participants, our members, co-developing and funding the project in support of what we're doing, they're sharing the risk. They've come together and said, you know what? Yes, we believe that this technology can be a solution. And why don't we share the risk? We don't know exactly where we're going to put this yet. I mean, that's something that needs to be determined, but we see the value in developing this technology, collaboratively. And yes, let's develop it, and we are going to find that right place for it, whether it's an existing mine for a small application, or we're going to put it into a new project that we can put the time and the effort and have calculated risk to redesign or redevelop a mine with this technology.
It's funny, a couple of things. Something I want to circle back to something Sonia said about AI, it's interesting because what you said triggered a thought here. But at one of our events, we had the head of a open source, the Eclipse Foundation. Builds an open source platform like an Android sort of thing, but for many applications. And our membership model was lifted directly from software, right? Directly from, because I'd like to say I'm not from mining, but I can't say it anymore. Directly from software. And I told that to the executive head, and I said, look, it's open source, dude. Don't come after me for that. But that's it. There are nuances to open source too, and the whole open innovation thing. But what you said, Sonia, about AI, for example, you used AI as an example, and I go like this because people talk about AI and it just drives me crazy because if you take a look at the challenge in the industry, there's not enough data to do true AI. It's not there, or the amount of data is not there, the level of data is not there. There's a discontinuity of data that's not there. A meeting we had this afternoon in Mississauga is about exactly this problem. How we're going to solve that nut. But at the same time, there is the investor side of things, because I'll remember it just to nail what you said, because I totally forgot about that. We had the chief operating officer of one of the mining companies sitting in a board meeting, and he got a text from his boss at one of the investor meetings in Florida or something. And he said, Carl, he said, my boss just said, this other competitor's getting money because the investors are asking about the new cool stuff we're doing. What are we doing? So it does hit the investors do want to see some of this, but there's a balance between reality and bright, shiny object, and you're just blah, blah, right?
And that happens a lot.
Oh, too much.
Or like
I see
AI
it
is a buzzword.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But, do people really know what AI is and what it needs and what it requires?
I would say no.
No. Well, it's really funny. We're going into other industries. I was thinking about this on the way in because my graduate degree was actually in pattern recognition. And, when people talk about, again, this is connecting mining inside mining and outside of mining. And in the 90s, there's an article in Canadian, I think it was called Canadian Business, Jeff Hinton. You've probably heard of Jeff Hinton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's the founder of modern AI. I still have his paper from 1977 neural networks. I was blessed with the opportunity to get him on the phone in 1995 or 6 because I was looking at applying neural networks to mining when I was a lab rat years ago. And but again, this was 95, 96, where he had developed, his graduate students himself had developed some sort of algorithm, whatever, to reduce or eliminate breakouts in steel mills. 99, like it's millions of dollars because it would shut down the plant. That was in the 90s. And yet the industry today in mining is still just starting to talk about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I challenge the companies every time when they talk about, oh yeah, have you ever heard of this person? Never. No, who's that? we got a challenge here, right? Same as cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is not new. Have you heard of this person? Never heard of that person. Why not? So again, the connectivity between mining and outside the industry, I'm like, you're in mining, but you talked about outside of mining. You're outside of mining, but connected to mining.
Yeah.
So I want to explore that sort of.
But can I add to that?
Yeah.
I also
add whatever you want.
I also want to add to that. Like, I also find that, you know, the companies that are open to engaging with other companies outside of mining, or maybe in mining, you can speak to this. But I find that when a mining company comes to us, they're like, we have this challenge. We need your software. Amazing. Let's work together. Cool. And then it's like, well, we're here and we want your software to be here. And then we present the application. And then they're like, well, actually, we want to be here. And we're like, okay. And I'm like, okay, I know this process already. Let's start here and grow together to get to where you need to be. And it's like, no, we're here. We want to be here. But no, now we want to be here. Well, we can't get there. We need to work with you to understand your needs, to build out what you want, and understand and collect data over time. Like, if a company has a problem and they're willing to work with a tech startup outside of mining like us, we think differently. And we say, okay, let's start here. Let's get you using this application and learn from the users, learn from the data. Once we start collecting the data, then you tell us what you want us to do with the data. But now we have the data as an example that we can put in real life solutions to build out what you want, building it all up over time as we're collecting data, as we're seeing what the user experience is like, what the business needs, what kind of reports are necessary. Let's work together to get there. I find that in the beginning, when they engage us, they're in that mindset. But once they want to get started, it's like, no, we want to be here. And they're not willing to go through that process. And that's really frustrating.
Yeah. Well, it's dangerous too, because if you do that leap, then you end up doing a lot of rework because it's not doing what you need to do because you don't have the data to get there. Yeah,
I find AI very interesting. I don't really understand how it works, but I know what it does. Now, for example, with our system, a haulage system, you can have very complex haulage routes, multiple trains, different loading and unloading areas, different types of materials being moved. So we've also had the conversations in our workshops, and how are we developing this? Do we want to integrate AI and autonomy, where we can have our system operating based off of the knowledge it builds to essentially be optimized system where we can move material without having to plug in those control points. That's something that we'd want to do in the future. How are we going to get there? Well, we start where we are now, make the technology work, start off with the basics of automation, and then autonomy will come later on, where we can build those systems, understand the data, the results, and then start integrating. Well, what can we further do with these systems? How can we add AI into this?
But autonomy is a buzzword, so people are going to come to you. They're like, "We want autonomy now."
Well, I'm not going to lie. I mean, at the very beginning, we wanted to bring our technology forward as fully autonomous.
Define autonomous.
Exactly. So I learned automated autonomy is completely two different things.
Yeah.
And what works for us? Well, definitely not autonomy at this point in time. But that is something that we want to, and like you mentioned, we would have to start at a low level, start building it in and develop it and grow it to be something else over a course period of time.
Yeah, because if you try to do it right from the get-go, you're probably going to fail.
Yeah,
which it would
overblow something that's not going to work and spend a lot of money and have to start again.
And you're basically building a rocket ship to cross over the street.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? Like build the bridge first, see if the landscape changes and if you need to further it out, and then build a spaceship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's too, what you said was really important too, is that I see in the mining industry, especially, you get some of the suppliers, I'll use that term generally, that are building the spaceship,
Yeah.
hugely expensive, has all the bells and whistles and everything else. Yeah, there's a startup we're working with that has the same thing, that is completely different, much more attractive to the industry because it doesn't have everything. It's kind of like the MVP. So that analogy of, I like that, I'm going to steal that, spaceship, is really important. But back to the AI thing, and this is a really important thing, is defining what you're trying to do without using the buzzword. There's a guy I knew, he used to be at Cognos, IBM, serial entrepreneur. He actually helped develop the algorithm for Watson with IBM. He spoke at a mining event in 2015, and the way he defined this, there's an IBM guy there too. It's funny. He's the CTO of a cybersecurity firm right now here in Toronto. He said it's data and math. Look at it that simply. It's data and math. This is what we're trying to do. What's the data we're getting? What math techniques do we apply to get there versus the buzzwords, all these buzzwords that people, what are you trying to accomplish, right? And that's the same thing about the technologies. What problem are you trying to solve and how are you trying to solve it, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
no, I love this. I can go on for this for days, days and days. I've got some other challenges in this space. I forgot where we were on this stuff about working with the industry, inside and outside. There's one thing too, and again, this is something we talked about a while ago. Is there's a notion that I was told, somebody mentioned this in public a couple of years ago, that small startups, you can't work with large miners. They're going to steal IP, right? Like I was in seriously, you can't have small firms like a small software firm or a small startup work with an OEM. They're going to steal your stuff. It's impossible to do, right? Oh. Yeah, no, seriously, this is why you were doing that talk that Fred was at, right? So, well, I got somebody that knows that that's not true. But also, I was at a roundtable in New Jersey in October with a bunch of startups, a bunch of mining companies. The startups are all saying, "Well, you're trying to steal our IP. You want our IP," which is bizarre. But we hear this all the time, right? And again, our next podcast is on demystifying IP, because I think people are confused about intellectual property, the asset, the rights to that asset, and the commercial rights. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts about, as entrepreneurs, about the IP continuum and what your experience has been. Because there are like, we have run into this where a large company was going to acquire, and there's the acquisition exit piece too, acquire so they could actually shelve it because it competes. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts on the IP piece.
Go ahead.
Chivalry's not dead.
No, this is a big one, isn't it?
I haven't really encountered that problem because our applications are always SaaS, software as a service. And we always have an NDA in place to make sure that we're protecting the company's data. But the IP, it's always from the get-go, it's ours. Yes, you're going to work with us on enhancing the product for you. Your data is protected. We're never going to share that, but the IP is ours. So we always make sure that going forward, the companies that we're working with are aware of that. It's intellectual property. It's our product. We own it. Right. So I've never really had that issue. I do find that a lot of mining companies don't necessarily like SaaS and the cloud. They want like that old traditional software that you get in a CD and you install it on your computer. But I think a lot of them are, and that could create an IP issue. But I think a lot of them are, a lot of tech companies like us are putting cloud in processes in place in cloud that make high security companies feel like their data is protected. So there are ways to go about that. Enterprise, it's a whole other thing. IP can be a little tricky there because they have it physically on their on site. And we don't do that. We don't do enterprise. We do everything on the cloud. It's just easier for us. So I've never really had the IP issue. When you mention it, my reaction was, what? They do? how are they going to steal the IP? I don't understand it. I think like any company that you're going to work with, you have to have, an NDA in place at the start. Both parties have to understand, hey, this is what we're getting into. Yes, your data is 100% protected. We're never going to share your data. No one's ever, but the product is, if it's a SaaS product, it's owned by this company. That's the IP.
Yeah, two quick things on that. Well, actually three. One is we're actually seeing the mining industry is more open to this sort of stuff. So getting away from that, although there are some holdouts. The other side of that in the software space I ran into a couple of years ago is the whole Patriot Act. It's where the data warehouse. I actually ran into this last year in negotiating with a client because the Patriot Act allows the U.S. to basically have access to anything, which is a problem. Yeah. Have you run into that on where the data warehouse actually sits?
Yes. So we work with a lot of European companies and US. We actually house everything in Montreal, Canada.
Oh, cool.
Because it follows all the compliance within Europe and Canada and some of the US, and it follows a lot of that compliance. So keeping it in Montreal just worked better for us. Security wise, we don't house it in the US at all.
Okay, because I was curious, but a lot of people aren't familiar with that, and you can get into a lot of trouble really fast.
Different countries have different standards.
But it's also the openness and the access. You don't want private data access because of this act somewhere else. And it's too bad Anthony wasn't here at our legal counsel on his way to chat about that in terms of intellectual property. The most favorable place to just solve IP challenges in the courtroom is actually Toronto, which I didn't know. This is like jurisdictions for IP issues are becoming really, really important. It's Toronto or I think London in the UK. Like you said, Montreal. So I'm kind of curious. Have you heard or seen this sort of thing, jurisdictions for IP issues?
Yeah, I've heard about it, and that's one of the reasons why we chose Montreal when we were doing the research, because we're collecting a lot of data. I do think that as a tech company, it helped us that early on we worked with a mining company. So we started out, like I said, in the housing, and then we went to the oil and gas, which also has very high security. But it wasn't until we started working with this mining company that we understood that security for them was very different. And so we did our due diligence, and we originally wanted to house the data in Europe just because most of our clients were in Europe. Yeah. But then when we went into the compliance part of the security, and then we went into the US, we're like, no. Canada just made it simple, and it sort of has the compliance from a little bit of both countries, but it sort of covers everything, and it just made it I just felt more comfortable housing it here because I felt like our clients would be more protected.
Canadians we're nice people, right? We're too nice sometimes. But I just want to follow that thread before flipping it over to Aaron is like, again, talked about IP, but then there's the rights to the IP because have you ever thought about, taking your system and turning it into something where you could give the core software to somebody else to further develop SDK, that sort of thing? And how have you gone down that road? Or are you going down that road? You just SAS, you own everything, end of story.
We're not going to go down that road. Okay. That's just too much work.
It's too dangerous too.
It's dangerous, and it's going to overcomplicate everything. Yeah. And I don't think it's going to necessarily give whoever takes that part of the IP value because they don't know how it was built out. Yeah. And at some point, it's going to become obsolete. The technology is going to be old. How are they going to update it? What's the benefit of them taking the IP in-house and doing it themselves? Yeah.
Or it's to create it and customize it and then put you out of business, right? Because there's years and years and years. Sorry, Aaron, I'm going down a path. No, the software thing is kind of interesting because years ago I was in the background as giving some technical advice in a court case related to a software company. Unfortunately, the CEO of the software company is a friend of mine. I worked for the people that were suing him. It was a funny place to be. But what came out of that was that and again, I don't know this. I'm not an expert on this, but I think it's a danger, especially for software startups, is that if the software is modified by 20% or whatever, it's no longer as protected, right? You run into that. It's been modified. It's not the same thing. And you can get tangled up in courts for years over that. You're the software expert. I'm not. Have you heard about stuff like that?
I have heard about it. I think it's up to the software company or the tech company to really determine how they they're going to do that. For us, any new features that we build in, we do it as modules.
Yeah.
So only the companies that want it are going to have that turned on, so that the companies that don't want it only have the parts of the system that they need and want.
Okay, cool. So Aaron, hardware, building stuff, working
Hard
with multiple
tech.
people outside, IP,
Yes.
IPR, commercial rights, all this stuff. I'm kind of curious.
This is a big one. Hard tech.
Do we have until 5?
Yeah, what we do is out there. So our technology is out there. People will have their hands on it. People are involved with us. At the very beginning, as an idea, before I started the patent process and everything, it's who do I take this to get some feedback or engagement? And it was always in the back of my mind, is someone going to take my idea and run with it, and beat me to it or solve the problem before I can do it. But what I realized is, even a lot of those conversations or people I'd meet with, some wanted to have NDAs because, that's just the process, and others didn't. And at first I was very hesitant to meet with people, start talking about it and showing presentations where there's no NDA. But what I realized is it's more of information sharing. Yeah. And if there is involvement, well, there's a lot more to it than just sharing an idea.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to protect an IP, especially in hard tech. I mean, you have your secured patents. Yeah. So we have an IP strategy that we're working with, with our IP council, where we're entering into national patents in different countries based on our market application and the opportunities there. But on the other hand, is a lot of the work that we're doing internally to develop the technology isn't anything that you could patent, but it's data that we're collecting, and it's the details we're building into the design that we can't really share. It's not shareable. I mean, they'll see our end product, but ultimately, how did we get to that solution, and why does it work like this? It is very intricate. It takes a lot of time, a lot of subject matter experts, and it's very expensive to do that. So at the end of this, we're going to have a technology that's developed. And even the concept looks simple. The technology will be very simple when it's developed, but understanding how we got to that is very complex.
And like you said before, it's more of a systems integration, which is a little different than I'm building this.
That's right.
So for software, do you do patents? Do you have patent strategy, IP, like patent strategy?
Yeah,
you do? Okay. You do that.
Yeah.
Okay, because I wasn't sure.
It can't be on the whole product. It has to be on something very specific.
The core.
The core, right. And it has to be something that doesn't exist, that's been the specialty, and it's been engineered specifically. But yes, you can. Yeah,
software IP is a little tougher, right? And I think that's an important thing. What you said, Aaron, is IP strategy. A lot of startups go in there and basically they're not protecting anything. They're having conversations, or what you said too is, there's a conversation with a potential customer versus let's go down to an NDA. I used to love NDA, stood for non-discussion agreement, right? But you can do, and this is a really important piece of what you said, I think, is you can have discussions with people, but it's how far do you go before you need to actually get to that, right? Yeah, which is really important.
Where is it leading? Where's those conversations leading to? If it's going to be going further, then yes, then it validates putting an NDA in place.
Yeah, how much you're going to open a kimono, basically.
That's right.
Is the old-fashioned saying.
Yeah.
But a lot of the startups we talk to, they don't understand that. They want an NDA before they have a conversation with you, or they'll just be totally open, give you everything. And there's a balance there, right?
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, that's a learning. That's a learning. Lessons learned, as you do not need to have an NDA to have a conversation with someone. You want to be open in the conversation and just have a conversation. I mean, just talk about it and get the feedback. But if it's going to lead down a route of collaboration or partnership, then it is valid to have an NDA. And they understand that as well, to protect their business and what they're doing as well.
Yeah. Which is really good. That's really cool because, like I said, a lot of people do not understand that. The other side of it, again, we talked about IP, the asset, right? But then there's rights. In Sonia software, in your case, it's probably because you own everything. You have customers, but in your case, Aaron, with hardware, and your customers are paying for your development. I'm kind of curious your thoughts on rights to your IP when you're doing co-development. And then commercial rights, right? Because I don't want to put you in the spot. We're in that conversation right now, but advice to other entrepreneurs going down that path.
I would say that's a path that needs to go, that every individual or every company or entrepreneur needs to go down, and it's going to be different for everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're in those discussions right now with our partners, and I don't know those answers right now, what that's going to look like. We have a wireframe of what we think it will be once we're done, but that's going to be determined over the next 2 years as we develop what that will actually work out to be.
Can I ask you a question? What if you have like a greedy company that's like, no, that's ours. We built that along with you, and they refuse to let you use it.
We sit in the middle and make sure both are kind of.
No, I think that's the general understanding of the group we're working with. It's a win-win situation.
Okay.
So for our benefit at the end of the day is to become a equipment provider, like an OEM of this technology. And the benefits for them is to be able to use the technology to benefit their projects. So we're looking to do this project collectively, where we're going to provide something that benefits them and in exchange benefits us. So it is essentially a win-win in the way we're doing this.
Well, in what you said in that question actually is really important, Sonia, because, and I'll relate a little bit of our experience with that, is in conversations that we've had with companies, is that the mining companies that are around the table are like, there's a cohort, there's a relatively small group of mining companies that understand they need to collaborate to develop this together for an industry level solution. Again, that's kind of what we're focused on, his software or hardware. Sorry, I'm mixing the two of you up already. is a really tough industry level thing. And the mining companies there basically are dedicated, in all the consortia we have 11 consortia, 5 with startups. 5, and we're trying to launch a few more, is that this is solving a really bad problem. They understand they need to collaborate. I think one of you brought it up earlier, to solve this problem. They need to co-develop to reduce the risk because they can't do it themselves. And it's that core group of people that are all dedicated to doing this, and agreements that are put in place. We're negotiating one right now, ensures that it stays that way. And there is a mechanism and agreements and everything in place to make sure that basically it's a collaborative group that makes collaborative decisions.
That's right.
Right. And that's a little bit of different versus stories I've heard just 6 months ago about how 2 mining companies collaborated and one said, screw you, I'm going to buy it out. No, seriously, This happens. It happens in other industries too, right? And you said that earlier, other industries do the same thing. So that's a different kind of framework to make sure that thing happens. Again, we stole it, borrowed. Oh, seriously, that's a whole idea about learning from other industries, right? Is bring other industries in.
And I think you made a good point. The more companies you have coming in and collaborating together, the better it's going to be in the long term. Because those companies are going to be a lot further ahead later on. And
it comes, what you said is true. You have to be careful about it. It's got to be the right companies for the right reasons, because we're seeing that is, and a few mining companies we've talked to in the last 3 months have all said the same thing. We want people of the same philosophical mindset to do the same thing for the industry and our companies, because we got big challenges we need to solve. So not everybody's like that. Other industries, same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not different.
That's right. Touching base on, you had mentioned competitors and also IP, and so that is a big thing too. I mean, obviously, there's big players in the OEM space in the mining industry. They could probably take something and run with it. Not necessarily faster, but they have the abilities to do that if they wanted to. Yeah. But from what I've learned is I shouldn't be afraid of competition or competitors. I've engaged with other OEMs on, is there any collaboration opportunities with what you do and with what we're doing? Because what I realized is they have their own product lines. They have a business strategy. They have so much funding as any other company does. It wouldn't make sense for someone to say, ooh, this is a good idea. I'm going to dump tens of $millions into this that doesn't really fit into what we're doing and our revenue bottom line, and hope it works, and hopefully they buy it, right? That's a huge risk. So for us, understanding that, it makes more sense to not be afraid, but to engage and also understand that we are the experts. Yeah. And, we want to position ourselves as a company to stay in front of potential competitors as well. If we look at large OEMs, I mean, their processes to develop new technologies, they have the abilities to do it if they want to. They have the facilities, they can manufacture. But we also have the capabilities of moving fast and making changes, because this is a new technology as well. We have to adapt and be agile at the same time. So we do know we're going to be able to take this to a certain position where either, yes, we want to bring it to a partner, or we develop ourselves and scale ourselves up. But also we do understand if this technology is more beneficial than other types of material haulage systems in the mining space, say if we're a huge improvement over trucks or conveyors and there's a huge market application for it, well, obviously we won't be able to supply to the entire industry. There is going to be competitors that, yes, that are going to come into our space. And I mean, it's also a good thing. Competition is a good thing because that pushes us further to further improve the technology to do different things. So, no, I mean, being afraid as an entrepreneur with a hard tech or ideas, you can't be afraid. You just have to find your own path and navigate through those IP thoughts or different strategies, right?
And something you said too, being afraid, I think it's understanding what you just said, that just because you think it's so doesn't mean it is so.
I think competitors are great.
Oh, absolutely.
It validates your idea, pushes you further.
Motivation.
And you have to be better.
Yeah.
What are they doing and not doing that I can do?
Well, and also too, some people go in there. I've seen, I don't know how many people I've heard this from over the years, the decades, is we have no competitors. Oh, you do. You just don't know yet.
Yeah.
You do. You have competitors.
You haven't done your market research.
You do not understand what's out there. You've missed the boat. And by the way, if you don't do it the right way, your competitor's going to eat your lunch faster, especially with large OEMs. But the other piece of this, Aaron, too, is in your case for deep tech, and I don't know if it applies to software, is partnering with large suppliers. So we ran into this, a year ago or so, and one of the people that's commercializing one of the technologies in CMIC has run into this in her career in the past, where the competitor wants to acquire the technology, the IP, the tech, and everything, so they can shelf it because it competes with their existing product line, right? Which is a really old-fashioned mentality, right? We want to protect ourselves versus add to our product line. Mm-hmm. Does that concern you when you're talking to, or you're thinking about that when you're talking to OEMs and others?
No, for me, I have a vision, and my vision isn't a dollar figure. It's to make a change in the mining industry. Yeah. And that's ultimately the goal that I'm going to lead this down. Yeah. So for someone to come and say, we're going to pay this, that's not really where my vision is, where I want to take it. So ultimately, I will go through the hurdles to take this to the end to see my vision out. So really we're going to work through the hurdles and get to where we want to be with this technology.
And what you just said is also really important, is it relates to the vision and how you're going to stick this out, because you're there to change the industry. And a potential exit strategy would not include, I'm going to make $1 gazillion and sell it early, and they're going to shelf it or screw the industry to help me develop it, right?
That's right.
Which is really cool, because this is the other thing too. And again, the podcast I was listening to yesterday about exits, I don't know how many entrepreneurs I've talked to. It's like they go into this that, I'm going to build this in a couple of years and make $1 gazillion. And it's really, really interesting because one of the guys I'm working with right now was a managing partner in a venture capital firm. And one of the investments they made was in a power electronics company. I won't state who it was. In another lifetime, I knew this company 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, right? And they just got acquired for $1 billion Canadian, but it's 20 years, right? This doesn't happen overnight, right? People do not understand that maybe it does in some other technologies where you've got something really disruptive that that somebody outside wants to acquire it because it can help them. But what you just said, Aaron, I think is exit. Your exit is to build a company, right? To build it and solve the industry problem. Have you thought further down that path of, what your company, what RIINO is going to look like in the future? Or you'd rather not say?
I'll tell you some of my secrets. Okay? No, ultimately, I know where I want to be with my vision, but say a dollar figure or how we're going to get there, I've learned that I don't know quite yet where or what this is going to be at the end of it. Yeah. We know that if we're successful, ultimately we can change the mining industry. We can disrupt the mining industry, but we have a long path to get there. It's not easy. There's going to be a lot of challenges, a lot of unexpected hurdles we're going to have to go through. but we do want to get there, and that we're committing to that. So whether it's the dollar figure that will follow, we don't know. I mean, we can't put numbers to it, or we can't put, and ultimately, if we are successful, what that change in the mining industry will be. We're going to kind of see as we work through this, we're going to have a better understanding or perspective of what it might be the further we get.
So what you said is you're going to stick with it until you see the industry has been changed.
However
you
right.
get there, like, the straight path is actually like this.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Exactly.
Cool. Sonia.
We have had a situation where one of our biggest competitors got bought out by a VC.
Yeah.
And the VC contacted me, and while they were doing their due diligence to acquire this company, which dominated the space, our company kept coming up. So they did buy out that company and raised their prices quadruple. And then they wanted to buy us out so that they could really dominate, because we were the smaller guys, but we had a whole space that other company didn't. And so we just had to make the decision that, no, we want to keep growing. We want to keep serving our client niche. And we just didn't want to do that. But in turn, that actually ended up being better for us, because we've now acquired like 50% of their customers.
Oh, really?
Because they quadrupled their prices.
It's a reverse takeover sort of thing.
And like if you go on Reddit, there's just like all of these comments about, this company, we've been with them for 30, 40 years, and now they got bought out, and these VCs, and there isn't very nice things being said. They look like they're greedy.
Yeah.
And now all these companies are switching over to companies like ours, because we are a little bit, on the smaller end, but we have the exact same product. We can accommodate them for like way lower costs. So it's actually allowed us to grow.
Yeah.
By saying, no, we're not going to go down that path. We're going to continue growth this way. And it's been pretty beneficial for us.
So a couple of things back to earlier comments you made is that by being true to your vision that we're going to do this, but also being high touch with your customers, and customers come first versus I like the term greedy, because I see too many companies that are greedy trying to make money, and you end up going somewhere else because I'm tired of this crap, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just software and mining, it's all over the place. So you gave up the idea. There's a guy years ago, he sold a software company, and the proceeds, he bought himself an island in the Caribbean. So he gave up an island in the Caribbean to be nice to your customers. No, it's actually a very famous case from the late 90s. It was pretty funny. Again, just to go down a couple more questions, because we're wrapping up here fairly soon. I kind of asked a little bit about what's next. We've kind of got that, like with Field Eagle and Menu Sano, you're going to keep growing and growing. Do you have any thoughts of basically, like, you're running 3 companies? Have you got what's next for you on the entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like,
Secrets, Sonia, secrets.
I don't know. It's hard for me because Field Eagle and Menu Sano are my babies. And Menu Sano is now at a point where it's really grown, and I don't think it needs me as much as Field Eagle. I'm very attached to Field Eagle because I took over that product after the original founding team all left and abandoned me and left me by myself. And that happens.
Sounds like you need a hug. True hug, Sonia. You've been abandoned.
And I had to like restructure it and rebuild it. And I've gone through that process, and I worked with like a major mining company, managed that project by myself. And now we're at a point where I want to bring in the AI and all this automation. So to me, the future is like, I love tech. So it's hard. I can't think like, a week or two ahead. I'm just sort of going with what I love. I want to continue building tech products that are, changing the industry. Maybe in the future, get involved, as in other startups to help them get to a point where they need to be based on lessons I've learned and things like that. But yeah, I like the startup space, and that's where I would like to stay. Or I mentor for a program, so I mentor young women that want to get into the startup space. I'm now on a board of Hacker Gals, which is a nonprofit that teaches young girls at the elementary school level how to code. So I'm dipping my feet into other things now.
No, I was always wondering, are you going to do a third?
Probably.
Yeah.
I would like to.
But two things that you said. I want to one comment, and the other is more of a question. Is like going down to the elementary school younger people.
Yeah.
The issue in mining is, how do we attract more people to mining? Well, let's go to the universities. It's too late. You got to go to the public schools. A couple of entrepreneurs I knew years ago, very successful. This is in Ottawa. And we're talking about this. How do you attract more people to the entrepreneurship space? And this guy's comment was, well, let's take it three. Not me, it was them. I happened to be sitting in the meeting as a guest. We'll all take our Porsches and we'll pile into the parking lot. We'll do donuts outside the classroom and go, this is what entrepreneurship is about. You don't want to work for company X, right? So, but what you said is really important, digging down earlier to get them excited by it.
Yeah.
But the other thing too, circling back to the leadership question, they're kind of your babies, right?
Yeah.
And this happens. I went through that process, but the idea of it's not about you, it's about the company, which you saw that yesterday. It's about the company. So like if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, or if you decide, screw it, I'm done, I'm buying that Caribbean island and moving. When is it time to let go as a leader? When is it time to let go, and how do you do that? Because eventually as startups grow, right, you come to an inflection point that it may be time for somebody else, or it may be time for you to let go. I mean, have you, I don't know if this is too personal, but have you thought about that?
I have. I mean, with Menusano, I'm getting to that point now where I'm like, I think I've taken it to a certain point, and I've structured it so that the company is not 100% dependent on me. If I got sick tomorrow, it could keep running and it would do well. There's people in place to everyone has a rule. It's not dependent 100% on me. But it is my baby. But I could get into other things.
The reason I ask is because a lot of founders don't know when to let go.
Yeah.
Like it gets to a certain point, it's like you're the guy that knows all the tech. In your case, you're different, Aaron. Like you're not the techie guy, but know all the tech and think they can run the business, think they can go there forever. And conversation, again, somebody I know in the VC space, a conversation they had with a company just last year was, we'll give you the VC placement. CEO's got to go.
Yeah.
Right. So the founder has to understand there's a time when you probably want to let go.
You have to, right? Because no VC is going to invest like you heard yesterday, no VC is going to invest in a company that is dependent on the founder. Because if that founder leaves, so does everything else. So you have to build it to a certain point where it's self-reliant. And if the founder can go and run another company or be present and, hand off things, but not be the face of it 100%.
But the one differential there too is if there's an acquisition, and I thought about this later, if there's an acquisition, companies will acquire the company, not for the company, for the tech.
Yeah.
Right. It has nothing to do with the company. We want that because we're going to build it in the product line and take it off. So Aaron, same sort of question. I can't remember what the question was.
No. So for myself, I mean, we're not at that point yet. I mean, with the technology to say I will ever be able just to let it go and it'll run on its own at this point in time. Yeah. When that will happen with what we're doing, I don't know. Yeah. But I do know that from what I've learned, and obviously from feedback from others with other companies, is I need to build a business that at some point in time that can happen. Yeah. When that timing is, I don't know because we're still early on. Yeah. But for myself as an entrepreneur, I do have other ideas that, maybe spin off to what we're doing now to supplement, this technology in the mining space. And that can be used in other areas within the industry and outside of the industry. So I do want to do other things. I do want to take on other projects, but right now we have to build what we're building, right? I'll say there's zero time for that. There's no time, honestly, for anything else than what we're doing, right? But for myself, for what I enjoy doing this. I enjoy building a business and learning and developing myself. And I think one day down the road, when RIINO can take on itself and become a company, that I would like to move on to other types of projects like we're doing right now.
Yeah. No, that's good. It sounds like for somebody who's relatively new, you've actually given a lot of thought to this, which I normally don't run into, which is cool. So I have 2 more questions for you. Really, okay. I said earlier, it's not a bomb. It's not a bomb. So working with the mining industry, if you had one piece of advice, say you had the CEOs of 7 mining companies sitting in front of you, your entrepreneurs, your startups, right? And your stuff, your technology is going to help them. What's a piece of advice or 2 that you would have for them?
That's a tough question.
I know. That's why I saved it for the end.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah.
I think I would just really say, be open to collaborate. Don't try to do it yourself. It's just sort of like that same thing I was saying, offshore or outsource. Yeah. If you want to build tech and you're not a tech company, you're a mining company, let a tech company come in and build the tech and be willing to work with us. Understand that it's going to take time. There's going to be a lot of patience involved, but let us build the tech for you and you work with us so that it's going to be done right. Because that's what we do. We're a tech company. We build tech. Yeah. You need tech? Let's do it. You're the mining company. We're going to learn everything there is to know about the mining company from you. That's what we need you for. Yeah. But you need the tech, so you need us. Let's work together. And
collaborate the right way. Because people talk about collaboration. It's not the same thing for everybody. That's cool. Yeah. Aaron.
For myself, from what I've learned so far, is I believe we're just starting down this path of changing the way we mine, starting new technologies and co-developing and working together as an industry. That isn't something we've really seen before. So if we were to have multiple CEOs in the room, it would be a matter of, rather than right now, just having 2 or 3 and all these other mining companies standing in the background saying, this is a great idea. It's a matter of, okay, yes, we do collectively agree this is a great idea and that we will be successful, because if we're working on it right now, the small group of us do strongly believe we're going to do it and we're committed to making it happen. But what would make this process smoother and a little bit more seamless and go a lot faster is to have more engaged at this point in time. So for example, if we had more members here around the table today, rather than the 3 of us dipping our toes in, going to move this forward, let's have more commitment from the industry. Let's work together. Let's put more resources behind it. Let's put more funding behind it. Let's move this faster so that we can realize these benefits and results sooner rather than 4 or 5 years down the road.
Well, we're actually trying to put things in place we now have a group of companies through our other companies to do exactly that, to offset some of this stuff. It's a hard road, but we're getting there. Mm-hmm. Last question. Startups in mining. Entrepreneurs, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to, or in your case, Sonia, wants to be an entrepreneur, and specifically, in mining as well? Piece of advice.
I think it's not something that you can just go out and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It is something that just happens, right? You have to.
On my checklist.
Right? No, I don't think you could just say, I want to be an entrepreneur. I think, myself, I've been wanting to be an entrepreneur for most of my life, but I've never found that right thing that suits me or that I want to do. I've looked at many different opportunities, businesses, and I've never really advanced them because it's not really that I felt strongly enough about to change what I was doing, until I started going down this journey and I realized that this is something that I really want to do. So first and foremost is you're going to want to become an entrepreneur if you feel that that is something that you can live every day doing, that you can get up in the morning and enjoy, knowing that there's risks, there's sacrifices, that it's not going to be a burden to you or your lifestyle. It's something that you're willing to sacrifice to do, because as an entrepreneur, there's huge sacrifices, relationships, commitments, family, financially. But if you're a true entrepreneur doing what you want to do, that doesn't faze you. You actually still wake up in the morning and enjoy what you're doing. For what I have to do, I mean, there's many deliverables for our project or relationships or working with people outside of the country, different time zones. I'll be up in the middle of the night having a meeting, or, I'll work all weekend and say if I don't have my kids, and I enjoy doing it. I don't say to my friends, this isn't, I'm not having fun. I wake up and say, I'm having a good day. Yeah. But you also, secondly, as an entrepreneur, you can't say this is how I'm going to get to where I want to be. You start with that vision, but you figure it out as you go. You can't be hard on yourself. You have to realize it's a learning experience, and there's many steps to the process. It's almost like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And if you understand that as you begin, you'll be more comfortable with what you're doing, understanding that this is a process. This does take time. There is no perfect way or right way to do things, but if you're comfortable doing that, you will get there at the end of the day.
You said 2 things: sacrifice, which I don't think a lot of people understand that, and also it's here. It's the driver that we started out with. Yeah. Sonia.
I mean, everything that you said.
That's why I went first.
That's why I went first. But I'm going to add to that, to your question, specifically to mining. I think anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, from everything that you said to being specifically in mining, I would say start young if you can. And before you go down the entrepreneurial path, learn the mining industry language. Go to mining events, even if you're just a fly on the wall. They speak differently. They act differently. They start meetings at 8 a.m., not 11 a.m. Learn that space, because if that's going to be your client base, you want to speak the same language.
Yeah, so understanding your customer. It's funny, I forgot about that. I don't know, like we see that all the time. Right?
Mining is different.
It's totally, in your case, you're lucky because you've been in the business. You understand.
For me, I don't see that difference because I am in the mining space.
Oh, no,
I know how to
totally
speak
different.
mining, to interact. I don't see it from your perspective where it's different because
it's
I don't
understand.
understand
The way you dress.
Yeah.
You go to a tech conference with a bunch of techies, and then you go to a mining conference. You walk in and you see the difference right away.
Right. No,
it even
you're
starts
absolutely
there, right?
I got reprimanded for showing up to do a keynote in jeans. Seriously, at a mining conference.
Right, but in tech, that's.
I shouldn't have had a jacket. I should have had a t-shirt. But that's the whole thing too about leadership. It's a balance between your authentic self, I'm a huge believer in that, but also meeting with the customer. So slowly, again, I'd never, when I was in work, it'd be jeans and a t-shirt all the time. In mining, I couldn't do that, right? Yeah. But then slowly you get to the point where they accept, you've got to go into it gradually, right? But what you said, Sonia, I think is so critical. And this is the what the 2 of you said, but understand the mining business because it is totally different. And this roundtable we had in New Jersey, that was the comments from 5 mining companies. You need to understand their business, right?
Absolutely.
And those tech pitches at that event we had a whiteboard that covered this room, like the size of this room, where we just sketched out the business, because we'd do startups for first-year software students, knew nothing about mining. Oh, that's how it works. Okay, we can figure it out. They knew product in the morning. Or new piece of software.
So I would say, as an entrepreneur coming into the mining space, work with individuals in the mining space that have the experience, that understand the diversification, because there's just not one group in the mining space. It is very diverse, but they understand how to communicate between those groups. So definitely
go to third parties who can navigate it for you.
Exactly.
So this has been really cool. I think we could go for another hour or 2 or 3 on some of this stuff, but unfortunately we've got something else scheduled right after this. So Aaron, Sonia, thank you. This is fun. I had a lot of fun with this, and it's been a really great conversation. So thank you very much. Very insightful.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Cool. This was fun.
Anytime. Thank you for tuning into Source. We hope you'll learn some valuable insights and really cool information about the mining industry, and especially how it impacts our lives every single day. You want to stay tuned to what we're up to and the really cool innovations that are going on every single day? Connect with us on our social media channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, or at our website, rethinkmining.org. Until next time, catch you later.